Salutations, and welcome back to Quantum Wisdom. I'm Morgan, and today we're going to go into sacred geometry, just a little bit. Now, we've done chakras, we've done mindfulness, we've done law of attraction, self-hypnosis, and last one we did reincarnation. And today we're going to do sacred geometry. And as always, we're going to calm the body, calm the mind, balance the body, or balance the mind and then balance the body. And we're not doing a meditation today, so we'll start out with the singing bowl and get rid of any kind of negative energies. Beautiful. All right. So, I am by no means an expert on any of the topics I talk about. These topics are subjects that I have been interested in for a very long time. I've done my own research, and I have gained a lot of wisdom from my research that has inspired me, and I have found tools that I've used personally to gain insight to improve my life and my relationships. I'm sharing them today with you so that you may gain your own wisdom, if you so choose. If there's anything that I have said that may pique your interest, please look them up. Do your own research. There is a world of information out there on social media, in books, that you can discover. And that brings us to the math of consciousness, sacred geometry. Now, I'm only going to go in a little bit into this big information. Like I said, there's so much out there. And math can boggle the mind. Yet, it's the universal language. Math gives us numbers, symbols, forms, and it transcends any spoken language. You can go to a different country and say 2, and they will understand. It transcends any spoken language. I'm also going to be reading, because there is so much information that I would like to get out to you. So bear with me. When you really look into this kind of geometry, it opens reality to the natural world. How nature grows and expands. I'm only giving a small amount of this immense information that is actually out there. The mathematics of the Earth's sphere is quite intriguing when you delve into it deeper. Now, the philosophers, the mathematicians, they took the time to think of what came before us. And this is where you get into Plato, Socrates, Galileo, Pythagoras. He's the one that actually found octaves, notes, sounds to make music. And that's just to name a few. They went into great detail. And if you're intrigued enough to study them, please go for it. I'm going to break down a small amount into a simpler way. And I'm talking about creation. When you create something, where does it come from? Let's say you want to create a tool. Where does that come from? What do you need to create it? Well, the idea for that tool comes from consciousness. You have to have consciousness before you can create anything. Creation comes from within our minds. An idea needs consciousness to form into matter. Consciousness, we're going to call that a point in space. Then that point says, I want to create something, and finds that idea. And that consciousness expands out 360 degrees. And we're going to call this a circle. Now we have the idea, and we will call that 1. Two comes from deciding to create that idea and getting the first thoughts that will create that tool. Those first thoughts that brings us to 2. So you'll take that dot of consciousness into a circle, and that circle will create another circle. That consciousness will go to the edge of that circle and then make an exact circle at that point on the very edge. So it actually comes into a 2 circle, and then we'll call this the Vesica Piscis. So you've got 1 and 2. You've got left and right, male, female, sun and moon. That's where we come into the math part of 2 circles. This is geometry, so we're going to keep going on with that. All right, so that brings us to 3. 3 is the birth of the idea. This is where we start moving. We write down the idea, we get the materials we need, and at this point, we will put another circle into the Vesica Piscis, and it'll go right next to the second circle. And within this picture, we will draw lines from each point of the petal that is made inside the triad. Within the 3 circles, you can draw lines from each point of the petal, and you will get a triangle. It is the first odd number of sacred geometry, and this brings forth the idea. And now it's time to add another circle, so that brings us to 4. So 4 circles, starting with the first one, and then we'll bring it around. And at this point, you can see 4 circles. And you can take those 4 points within the first circle and it'll bring depth and form. 4 is often associated with modes of manifestation. The elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Now we've only been looking at this picture 2-dimensionally. Let's step it up a notch and imagine those circles 3-dimensionally. So we now have spheres. And at this point, we can see that those 4 circles look more like cells dividing. When we start to draw lines and connect them, we start to form what's called the Platonic solids. The tetrahedron represents fire. The cube represents earth. The octahedron represents air. The isosahedron represents water. And the dodecahedron represents ether. So that's more cosmic. We see the 4 pattern in like cell division within nature. The cube represents earth, the soil that a seed needs to grow in and give it nourishment. That's what we're talking about when we talk about earth. So in other words, a stable foundation for our idea to grow. We've now made the form and structure of our idea. And we've come to the middle of the journey. 5. We'll follow the same pattern and add another circle on. This is where change happens. Connecting the lines again, and we find a pentagon or a pentagram. 3D version of this is the dodecahedron, representing the ether, the spirit, and it's also called the egg of life. And this is where we also find the pentagram within the body. We are a 5-pointed star. We've got our head, we've got our hands, we've got our legs. There are other shapes in nature that have these 5-pointed stars. Flowers, starfish, and if you cut an apple in half, there's a star in the middle of the apple. Just like as we grow from infant to elderly, we learn, change, and grow. And this is the progression of the 1, 2, 3, 4, now we're on 5. And this is where the idea gets more refined. So that tool that we thought of in the beginning, it's now getting more refined. Now we go to 6. We're going to add another circle on there. Now this is where we find harmony, balance, and order. This is the hexagon, or the 6-pointed star. 3D version of this is the octahedron, which represents air. This now also makes the flower of life with the spheres. In nature, we can see that the ant has 6 legs. This gives the ant stability, structure, in order to carry out its function, and is able to lift heavy and bigger things than they are. We see this structure in the bee honeycomb. This structure is the perfect use of space. Now 7. And yes, we're going to put in another circle yet again. Now the 7 doesn't have form or any equal sides to it. Yet it is still important for the growth of the idea. This is the wisdom part of the process. Would my idea be helpful to other people? How can I get other people to use my idea, my tool? How to promote that idea? And then we come to 8. You guessed it, another circle. 8 represents the octagon. This is where you start manufacturing more of your idea, the tool that we're using. And it brings more of an abundance. So this is the perfect use of the idea and the abundance of it. 9, last circle. 9 is the completion. 9 has learned everything from 1 to 8. 9 has magic to it. If you add 9 to any number from 1 to 9, it comes back to that number. Like if I were to do math and do 9 plus 5, which is 14. 1 plus 4 equals 5. So any number that 9 is added to, it'll go back to that number ultimately. And there's way more to it as well. Like I said, go research. Please go research. So now our idea is complete. We've gotten that tool from 1 to 9. And I will stop at 9 due to 10 being consciousness again. 0 is just a placeholder. So if you got 1, 1, 11, that's the beginning and then another beginning. 12 is the beginning and 2. 13 is the beginning and 3. So it keeps repeating itself. 1 through 9, 1 through 9, 1 through 9. So we'll go back through the steps from 1 to 9. 1 being new beginnings. Everything is new. This is the consciousness going, I need an idea. 2, we have duality and free choice. So when you take that first circle to add it on, you've got duality. You've got the left brain, the right brain, or the yin and the yang, those kind of things. And it's the decision to make that idea. 3, catalytic. It's where you start moving. 4 is stability, earthing, grounding. It's that stability of that tool. Is that tool going to work for what it's going to be used for? 5, change. This is where if there's something that's not working, that's where it gets changed to where it does work. 6 brings harmony, brings stability. 7 brings wisdom of what the whole process has given you. It's the wisdom of what you've just done. 8, that's the manifestation and the abundance. And then 9, that's completion. You've just completed the whole of the idea. And this is actually how life plays out, from infant to elderly. These numbers can be used for stages in life. How we've gone from infant to toddler to teenager to adult to elderly. And you've gained all that wisdom throughout your life. And when you're elderly, you don't even think about walking anymore. And when you're young, you learn how to walk. So those are the stages I'm talking about. They are also used in numerology and tarot. Tarot also follows that path of life. Like I continue to say, there is so much more information out there to find. I stayed away from most of the math part of sacred geometry because there isn't enough time to go through it all. If you get a drawing compass and start drawing those circles and those lines, it'll bring out an enlightenment of pretty much nature. Be creative and have fun with it. It actually is fun. I've done it myself several times. So, next time, we will get into more interesting things to say, so stay tuned. It's been a wonderful time to be with you again, and I wish you the very best, and have a great rest of your day. Until next time, go in peace and be blessed.